Okay, so let's dive into something that feels like it's constantly making headlines, but is still somehow shrouded in mystery. Teen social media use.
A real modern-day enigma. Right.
Right.
We think we have a handle on it, then bam, a new app pops up or a trend goes viral, and the landscape shifts all over again.
Exactly. And we're lucky enough to have some fresh intel from the ever-reliable Pew Research Center to guide us. So no crystal ball needed for this deep dive, just some cold, hard data about what's really going on behind those carefully curated feeds.
And what's fascinating here is how this study goes beyond just how much time teens spend online.
Yeah.
It delves into their motivations, their anxieties, the choices they make within these digital spaces.
It's like peeking behind the curtain of a show you thought you already understood. And the first thing I've got to say is the opening act was not what I was expecting at all. This whole idea that teens are constantly snapping selfies and airing their drama online, the study found that a surprising 48% of teens rarely, if ever, post selfies.
Wow.
And even less frequently post about anything remotely controversial.
It really does challenge the stereotype, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
But this data pushes us to dig deeper. Because even if it's not playing out in their posts, the pressure to present a certain image, to chase those likes and comments, is still very real for these teens.
So it's less about what they're posting and more about how they're internalizing these online pressures.
Exactly. Imagine a teen scrolling through their feed, bombarded by images of perfection, the flawless vacations, this seemingly effortless style. Even if they're not the ones posting it, those images create a sense of comparison, a need to measure up.
And that's where those deeper anxieties around self-image and social validation come into play.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The study found a significant gender split in selfie posting, with girls far more likely to post them than boys.
Which, if we connect that to the bigger picture, feels like an extension of the pressures girls already face offline, right? This idea that their worth is tied to their appearance makes you wonder, are these online platforms just mirroring the pressures teens already face or amplifying them?
That is the million-dollar question. And it highlights the need to understand social media not as a separate entity, but as a reflection of the larger societal forces at play.
Okay, so we've established that things aren't always as they appear on those perfectly curated feeds. But what about the social aspect?
Yeah.
Because on the surface, teens seem to be all about using these platforms to connect with friends, to strengthen those bonds.
Right. The study found that teens overwhelmingly view social media as a positive force in their friendships.
Which makes sense. It's a way to stay in touch, to share experiences.
Right.
But then lurking beneath that sunny surface is this whole other trend, unfriending.
It does seem a tad paradoxical, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the evolving nature of relationships in the digital age. Social media can absolutely bring people closer, but it also introduces a whole new set of social dynamics and, let's be honest, potential pitfalls.
Speaking of navigating those online friendships, the study also revealed some interesting trends about unfriending. And maybe it's just my own experience talking here, but I have to admit some of these reasons were a little too relatable. The study found that the top reasons teens gave for unfriending or unfollowing someone were drama,
Oh, yeah.
overposting.
Sure.
Oh, and my personal favorite, someone being fake.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
And what's interesting is it's not just about avoiding negativity.
Uh-huh.
It seems like teens are actively seeking out authenticity in their online spaces.
Absolutely. They're curating their digital worlds just like they curate their Instagram feeds.
Right.
And the people who make the cut have to be genuine, relatable,
Yeah.
and perhaps most importantly, respectful of those carefully constructed boundaries.
So it's less about being mean and more about, like you said, digital self-care.
Exactly. Unfollowing someone who's constantly posting about their latest cryptocurrency investment scheme, that's not being rude, that's self-preservation.
Okay, I have to ask,
Yeah.
have you ever unfollowed someone and then immediately regretted it? Like maybe they posted something truly hilarious a week later and you missed out on the inside joke?
Oh, absolutely. It's a delicate dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think this whole idea of digital self-care is a really important one.
Okay.
It reminds us that we have a right to curate our online experiences in a way that feels healthy and supportive.
Right.
even if it means making a few tough choices along the way.
And speaking of choices, this next part of the study really surprised me.
Okay.
We've talked about selfies, friendships, all that good stuff.
Right.
But what about how teens are actually using social media to access information?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know they're digital natives,
Mm-hmm.
but are they really getting their news from TikTok?
That's a great question,
Yeah.
and one that I think a lot of us are grappling with.
Right.
And the study found that while teens do see social media as a valuable source of diverse viewpoints...
Which makes sense. It's like having access to a global town square. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. They're also incredibly wary of it as a source of reliable news.
Really?
They're aware of the potential for bias, the spread of misinformation.
So they're not just passively consuming whatever pops up on their feeds.
Not at all.
Wow.
And this is where I think we see a real generational shift in how information is consumed.
Okay.
This is a generation that's grown up with fake news alerts and deep fakes.
Right.
They understand that anyone can be an influencer,
Yeah.
which means everyone has an agenda.
That's actually pretty impressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not just blindly trusting what they see online.
Exactly. And this awareness, this healthy skepticism, is so crucial in today's digital landscape.
Yeah.
It's less about avoiding social media altogether and more about engaging with it critically.
It's almost like they're more media literate than some adults I know.
Right.
So if they're not relying on social media for their daily dose of current events, where were they turning to for information?
Well, the study didn't delve into specific alternatives, but it's a really interesting question for future research.
Yeah.
Are they turning to more traditional media outlets? Are they creating their own news networks on platforms like Discord or Twitch?
It's like we're witnessing the birth of a whole new media ecosystem.
Right.
And speaking of the future, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, the one that makes parents and employers everywhere shudder: the digital footprint.
Right.
It's the inevitable consequence of a life lived online.
Yeah.
And the study did look into how often teens are actively trying to manage what their future selves, or more importantly, future employers, might see.
Yeah.
And don't leave us hanging.
The numbers were surprisingly low.
Surprisingly low. You're saying these teens aren't, like, meticulously scrubbing their online profiles in preparation for the real world?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
We might expect them to be hyper-aware of their digital footprints, constantly curating the perfect online persona for future employers.
Which, let's be honest, is something a lot of adults I know are still struggling with.
Exactly. But with teens, the study suggests a couple of possible interpretations.
Okay.
One is that some, perhaps many, might not fully grasp the longevity of their online actions.
Right.
But the other more intriguing possibility is that they have a different understanding of what's considered public or private in the digital age.
So, it's not that they're oblivious to the potential consequences. It's more like they're operating under a different set of assumptions.
Precisely.
Okay.
They've grown up in a world where sharing is second nature, where their online and offline identities are seamlessly intertwined.
Right.
What we perceive as risky oversharing might be for them just another Tuesday.
It's like they're living in a world where the digital curtain never really closes.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, how will this relationship with social media evolve as they mature? Will we see a sudden wave of LinkedIn profile makeovers when they enter the workforce?
Now that's a study I'd love to see.
Right.
It really highlights how much we still don't know about the long-term impacts of growing up in such a hyper-connected world.
It's both exciting and a little bit daunting, right? Like we're witnessing the birth of a whole new way of being human.
Yeah.
And we're still figuring out the rules as we go.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes this research so incredibly valuable.
Okay.
It's not about passing judgment on how teens use social media,
Yeah.
but rather seeking to understand the forces shaping their experiences, both online and off.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a teen issue, is it? We're all navigating this digital landscape together,
That's right.
trying to find that balance between connection and authenticity, self-expression and privacy.
Exactly. And perhaps by studying how this generation, who've never known a world without likes and follows, are adapting, we can glean some valuable insights into our own relationship with social media.
So for our listener out there, as you scroll through your feeds today, consider this.
Okay.
What surprised you about the inner workings of teen social media use? Did it challenge any of your assumptions? And what, if anything, does it make you rethink about your own digital habits?
Because understanding these trends isn't just about bridging the generational divide, it's about navigating the ever-evolving landscape of human connection in a digital age.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the fascinating world of teen social media use.
This was great, yeah.
Until next time, happy scrolling.